Scouts are relied on heavily when evaluating talent.
Teams should be drafting for the future and not just immediate needs.
It all starts with the quarterback position.
Thank you for listening to the East West Football Podcast with Jerry Martinez, Kendall Whitley, and now here is your host, Fidel Barraza.
Thank you so much for watching the East West Football Podcast on the East West Football Network channel on YouTube. I am your host, Fidel Barraza. Alongside with me is Kendall Whitley. And our special guest, he is the host of the 3 and Out podcast on the Colin Cowherd Network and also a co-host on the Haberman and MIddlekauff podcast. Make sure you check that out. John MIddlekauff. How you doing, John?
Doing good, fellas. How's it going?
Great, John.
Great.
Hey, so let's go and get started. I just want to get your thoughts on the NFL season so far.
I think it's been pretty good. I mean, the best part of football is anyone knows if you go to a high school practice, if you go to a college practice, if you go to an NFL practice, the moment you go live, it's full go. It doesn't look that much different. Like I've been to countless, obviously from NFL and college practices, and if they say tackle to the ground, it has 100% energy and 100% effort because it's the nature of the sport. It's one thing with basketball. If you're playing a pickup game, it doesn't look the same as a normal game. Baseball is kind of unique, but in football, the moment you say, blow the whistle, we're playing for a real score, you're going to get what we've seen because I think the effort has been as normal as it would be with fans. And the more I've seen it, the more you realize that's football, right? It's like that when you're in like Pee-wees and you do jamborees and they're like tackle to the ground. Someone's running at you, going to hit you. So you don't have a choice. So the effort's been awesome. The defense has been pretty shitty, but the rules now, right? You can't tackle. I guess you can tackle, but you can't hit. Right? The head hunting has been taken out of the game, so the rules have changed. I don't want to say it's a fantasy football league, but it definitely looks different than I don't know how old you guys are, but growing up in the '90s and even the 2000s, it looks. The physicality of the game, I still think guys play really hard and hit hard. There's just some of those, KO moments just don't happen anymore. And I think the offensive players have adapted, and, the offensive schemes know that you can run guys over the middle, you can run guys deep. They know a safety's not going to come over and decapitate them.
Yeah, John, what about a team that's maybe surprised you through these first few weeks in the NFL season?
I wouldn't say they surprised me, but just how buttoned up the Patriots look, which we shouldn't be surprised. They got Bill Belichick, but all the guys they lost, right, with Corona opt-outs. Cam Newton, listen, we all knew. I've never been the biggest Cam guy, but when he's healthy, I always respected his talent, and in a playoff game, he was a legit dude. But, he is dramatically different than Tom Brady. And then, boop, adapt, no issue. It's why Belichick's the best coach ever. It's not. It's simply because he could function with me, with you, with Cam, with Tom. Whatever his player does, Dante Hightower, he opts out. The next guy, Chung, the next guy. It just never matters. And if you gave most coaches, the amount of opt-outs, the drastic change in quarterback, I just think they would have struggled. I think Andy Reid is a good example of that. Think of all the different type quarterbacks he's had, from Alex to Vic to McNabb to Mahomes. I think you see with Kyle, the coaches that can adapt are dominating right now in the coronavirus. I saw Mike Tomlin, their game got postponed. His comment was simple: we do not care. And that's just the football mindset. It doesn't matter. Especially the NFL, you get used to having injuries. And I think the best coaches, listen, we're all humans. We complain. 2020 hasn't been fun, but the quicker you can just get, focused and figure out. Look at the Steelers last year. No quarterback play, right? Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph are terrible. They trade for Minka Fitzpatrick. I was like, what are they doing? And then their defense dominates. They go 8-8, and now boom, they're 3-0. Clearly headed back to the playoffs, right? If Ben can just stay upright. And football coaches, like great businessmen in America, adapt fast.
Who would you say is your biggest disappointment so far?
It's a good question. I feel like most of the 0-3 teams we thought we could see coming, right? Jets stink, Giants stink, Jets. The Broncos, but it's understandable. They've had all the injuries. Their quarterback's in a sling. I think they're playing, Thursday Night Football later tonight. I've never even heard of the guy. I've heard of him, but I don't know what – I've never seen him play. I think he's a Boise State guy. So, I can't expect – when you have a million injuries and your quarterback goes out, unless Kyle Shanahan is your coach, you're going to be in trouble. Minnesota, maybe, but they also lost a ton of players, right? Whole new defensive backfield. Listen, Diggs, people acted like he was some huge Terrell Owens, Antonio Brown diva. It never bothered me, because they won with him. He was a winning player. And maybe he had some theatrics on the sideline with Cousins, but I don't blame him because I'd take Diggs over Cousins. And look at Diggs now. He's killing it with Josh Allen. So to me, he's a winning player. And you remove that, and Justin Jefferson had a huge game last week. He's going to be good, but that's Diggs. They're different players, and so probably Minnesota. But when you really break it down, all their departures, they've had some early injuries. Cousins, he ain't a carrier, right? When his teams are stacked, which they have been the last couple of years, they do well. So I get that. I think the league's kind of playing out as we thought.
Let me get your thoughts on the Eagles situation. Obviously,
I guess that might be the team, but they've had so many injuries.
Yeah, what do you think's going on in Philadelphia besides the injuries, or do you think that's a major part of it?
Yeah, it's a huge part, right? Jason Peters is 50, and they're playing him at left tackle. Alshon nowhere to be found, and they were so capped out. They didn't have that much flexibility this offseason, so they were just going to depend on Alshon and Deshaun. Carson's playing like crap. That's when you have a quarterback. It's like in the NBA. When you max out a player, like Russell Westbrook or whoever, you get the max contract, you need them to be an all-star. If they're not an all-star, you're in trouble because of the cap. And Carson Wentz makes max money. So when you have a max quarterback, he doesn't have to be like the MVP, but he has to be one of the top 7-8 quarterbacks in the league. And he's been one of the bottom 7-8 quarterbacks in the league. He's thrown terrible interceptions. Now, he's had some plays that, his drop balls or, a tip pass, but he's thrown some picks that are on him, and he's just not playing well. You can't – of the 6 picks, I think 5 of them are definitely on him. To me, when your team is undermanned, right, Russell Wilson's a good example of this. He doesn't throw picks, right, over the years when his team's better now, but, when they transitioned from LOB to where they kind of became Russell's team, you can't turn the ball over because you don't have the margin for error. So Carson's turning the ball over. It's so cliche, but you learn it in high school football, right? Turnovers, you lose, right? And in the NFL, when the margins are really slim, he's just throwing picks. And it's just when your team is undermanned, you're going to lose every game.
Yes, and this Sunday night they have a showdown with the San Francisco 49ers. Talking about injuries, right? They're the one team a couple weeks back that had a lot of injuries against, the same game against the Giants, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So, what do you think this?
It was the Jets game, and then it went into the Giants game.
Yeah, both New York teams. So, do you believe that the struggles are going to continue with Carson Wentz this Sunday against the Niners?
Well, the Niners' defense is better than the Bengals, and it's better than the Rams. I think it's more complete than the Rams. Aaron Donald's better than anyone the Niners have, but the Niners – the thing about the Rams, they got 2 sweet players. Really one unreal player. And Jalen's an elite talent, but he'll pick his spots. He ain't Dion. He ain't playing – or even peak Revis where it's every play, every snap. He's I'm in it this game. That's the thing about Aaron Donald. He brings it every play. That's why he'll be the defensive player of the year. But the Niners as a whole, right, their defensive backs all tackle. Their linebacking play is fantastic. And their defensive line, it sucks losing Bosa, but Kinlaw's been playing well the last couple of weeks. Armstead's a really good player. The guys they're rotating in are good. And they just play with, insane effort. So it's going to be tough for Carson just because the Niners tackle well. They play so hard, and they do have talent. I guess Sherman's not going to be back this week, so they're still going to be undermanned at corner. But the Eagles ain't rolling out Terrell Owens, right? It's just random dudes. So I think the Niners defense is going to feel pretty good. But Carson, like as you saw at moments against the Bengals, he can make plays with his legs. He can just let it rip. You know, he's a talented player. He's just playing bad.
Yes, and then also, too, I mean, just staying with the Niners, do you believe – this is actually a question my co-host Jerry has. With all these injuries, they'll be able to make a playoff push?
To me, the key is just right now stack up these wins against the bad teams. I think they have the Dolphins next week. So if you get the Eagles and the Dolphins and all of a sudden you're 4-1, you give yourself a little leeway to get to 9-7, 10-6. And at the end of the day, if they can split the Rams and if they can go 3-3 in the division, they'll be in pretty good shape. Because the Rams and Seattle, if you're winning, splitting those games, you're going to be alive. You just saw the Rams; they lost at Buffalo. Seattle, their defense is too bad to just go like 14-2. They give up too many points. And Russell, I love Russell Wilson, but you just can't. You're not going to throw 5 touchdowns every game, right? He's going to have a game where he throws like 1. You'd think. I mean, maybe not. Maybe he just breaks the NFL record like 75 touchdowns. Yeah. But, I think the Niners, because they're not going to go every time they play Seattle and the Rams, they're just going to look at them like equals. That's just the thing with divisional games. It's why I think the Steelers, I don't think the Ravens are just going to win the division. Like, you think the Steelers are intimidated by Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? No chance. Now, it doesn't mean you want to win the game, but I think there's sometimes when you play like non-divisional games, right, and you're playing, a 10-0 team, you're like, damn, this team's sweet. But you saw last year when the Niners were, 8-0 or 9-0, played Seattle in that Monday night game, Seattle didn't look at them like the big bad wolf. They just looked at them like, yeah, we're better than these guys, and they beat them.
What do you make of Nick Mullens' play from last week? Do you feel that's going to continue for the time being as Jimmy Garoppolo still nurses that injury?
Yeah, I was a little, I guess, as we're recording this, Jimmy didn't practice on Wednesday and the practice report hasn't come out for Thursday. Usually when a guy sprains an ankle, you would not have him stand all game, right? He wouldn't be on the sideline standing. So when I saw him standing, I was like, oh, his ankle's not that bad. They're just holding him off this turf. He'll be back. But then when he missed practice on Wednesday, I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe he's not going to be back for a couple weeks. And maybe they're just trying to get him back to 100% health. I think when it comes to Mullens, I'm not trying to be a hater or anything, but he played, a team that might be the number 1 pick in the draft, right? And he played fine, and we've seen him. He's a good backup. It's why they keep him. It's why he'll probably, I think he's a free agent after this year. He'll get some money to be a good backup. The Niners, it's going to be hard for the Niners to probably pay a backup when you're paying a starting quarterback like $25 million. You can always move on from Jimmy, but he's not better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a better player, is a more talented player, and I just ideally you want to have a good starter, which the Niners have. They don't have a great starter. They have a good starter, and luckily their team's really good and their coach is elite. Look at the Chiefs with Andy Reid before Mahomes got there. Won a ton of games, right, with Alex. And I'd say Jimmy is more talented than Alex. He'll turn it over, but he's much more likely to make big plays, where Alex really till that last year couldn't do. So it's been proven. Good coaches or great coaches can win with above average players. And I think that's what Jimmy Garoppolo probably is. It's just when he's off, he's off. And the reality is, beside Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes, right, Tom Brady in his prime, Peyton Manning in his prime, most quarterbacks have what do you say, of 16 games a season are going to have 3 or 4 where they're just not good, right? And hopefully your team's good enough, your coach is good enough where you can win 2 of those 4 or 2 of those 5 and then play well when he's good and win, 8 or 9 in the others and get to 11 wins. That's kind of – you can't expect non-elite players to be good every week. It's just not humanly possible.
Yeah, and then I think we were only a couple plays away, right, from having a different conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo if he would have beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, right? So I feel like sometimes the fan base is a little too impatient. It's when Jimmy has a bad game, he has a really bad game, right? I mean, to me it seems like that. But when he
I do think they're like that though, and in fairness, because they're going, we got Kyle, we got a good team, we can win Super Bowls, right? So I've defended Jimmy, but I get the pushback. It's Andy Reid's going to win, could he win 3 straight Super Bowls?
Probably could.
Now, Now, you can't ask for Mahomes, but if Jimmy was just a little better, the Niners would have beat Mahomes. They'd clearly be really good again this year. And it just feels like, Jimmy's got to improve. And the reality is with his contract, like it's fun to talk about. But at the end of moving forward, they have the option to get rid of him every year, right? It's not like he's on, like Carson Wentz next year. He's going nowhere. His contract's huge. Jimmy Garoppolo every year is going to be like they can get out of it for $0. So the option is there, right?
Yeah, so let me just pose this question to you. So let's just say that the Niners have a bad season. For whatever reason, it goes to crap and they don't go into the playoffs, right? If you're the Niners, do you start looking for different answers at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the number one place you start. Now, it depends. If they go 8-8 and miss the playoffs and he's really good and their defense has a bunch of injuries and they start giving up a ton of points, but he has a career year, then I'd feel pretty good. It depends how he plays. Like, if he's the reason you're losing some of these games, like he has picks against Seattle and the Rams and the Bills, and you lose against playoff teams and he's the reason, then I think there's a decent chance he would be gone. I don't know what they would do, but I think it's pretty clear, like, Kyle likes him, but Kyle, if you look at his history, Kyle doesn't need, Tom Brady in his mind. So he goes, I can make Nick Mullens functional. What if I just find another Jimmy Garoppolo that I handpick? Because at the end of the day, when you look back at Jimmy, they had to do the deal. It was an easy deal, and Bill Belichick should be thanked. He threw them a bone. But they didn't, handpick Jimmy. It was Belichick called Kyle Shanahan one morning. It was like, you got 20 minutes. You want Garoppolo? Second-round pick. Call me back. I mean, that's how it happened. It's not like there was some bidding process, right? Like, at the end of the day, Minnesota got Kirk Cousins because they wanted Kirk Cousins. They were like, technically they didn't outbid him, but they were really aggressive. Like, they wanted him. Like, Belichick called him on Tuesday morning or Monday morning, and told him you got 20 minutes to make a decision, or an hour, or whatever it was. Yeah. That's how it happened. So it's not like they're head over heels, and they did support him through Tom Brady. And I think at 43 years old, I'd rather have just kept going with Jimmy. I think they made the right decision there. But yeah, I mean, I think Kyle's pretty open-minded when it comes. And at the end of the day, he's in charge. He makes way more money than John Lynch. John Lynch ultimately answers to him. He's just got a 6-year contract extension. The offense is his baby, right? And that to me is a big deal. When the offense is your baby, it changes things, right? You want to be like Sean Payton, Drew Brees, Mahomes, Andy, forever. Pete Carroll's a defensive guy, but he's tied at the hip with Russell Wilson's like his, him and John Schneider's guy. So I just think that it's just something to keep an eye on. I don't freak out game to game, but you definitely just big picture, just, keep in the back of your mind. Like they weren't going to kick him to the curb after they lost the Super Bowl to Mahomes in the last, some 3rd and 15 bomb, right? Now, if he had thrown 3 picks against the Vikings and they had lost by 20 points, the conversation and they didn't make it to the NFC Championship, or that happens this year, right? They get in as a wild card and he's terrible. That to me is the conversation to keep an eye on.
Yeah, thanks, John. And then my co-host Kendall has some questions for you as well.
Hey, what's going on, John? Thanks for joining us today.
No problem, man.
I want to get your a little bit of your insight. What's one of your biggest games this coming week, this Sunday, that you can't wait to see?
Probably Bills Raiders, because Josh Allen. I thought Josh Allen was just. I never would have drafted him. Mm-hmm. In the first year, I was like, yeah, he's pretty bad. And then last year, I was like, damn, this guy's got something. And this year, through the first 3 games, he looks like a Mahomes. I mean, he's been unreal. So can they go in the Raiders and just destroy them? I mean, they looked fantastic last week. They've looked good all year long. Mm-hmm. I'd say Chiefs, Raiders, or excuse me, Chiefs, Patriots, but what do the Chiefs have to prove now? Cool. It's be cool to watch. I enjoy watching Belichick and Cam, but I like the Chiefs week to week. Wake me up when the playoffs start. It doesn't even matter.
With the Bills and Josh Allen's current success, do you think it has more to do with the schedule of the teams they've played so far? Because they played the Dolphins and I believe they played the Jets, and then they played the Rams. And Josh Allen, he didn't struggle, but the second half it wasn't the prettiest or whatnot. So what do you make of the schedule so far? Do you think the Bills are the real deal, or is it too early to tell?
Yeah, I would agree on the first two games. I mean, they playing bad teams. But last week, the way he came out, and then even the way he played at the end, making some plays, I think there is no excuse for them not to win the division. Like, I think he's a better player than Cam Newton. Like at this, like in 2020. Now, I wouldn't bet against Belichick. He has not played well against the Patriots. So, they've been in the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years. So I think they're a playoff team, but I wouldn't bet my life savings on them winning the division just yet, just because of the Patriots. And the Patriots have been, beside the Seattle game, even last week against the Raiders, Cam was off. The first week, I think Cam threw for 150. It's not going to be pretty, but they're going to win. I mean, the Patriots are going to make the playoffs as long as Cam stays healthy.
Yes, that's good. That's good. I'm glad you said it because I'm a Patriots fan myself, so hopefully.
Yeah. You agree? Do you think Cam's looked that good of 2 of the 3 games?
He's looked decent. He looks pretty good to me. What do you think the Patriots need? Like, what do you think they're missing offensively? The weapons around Cam are not the greatest, but the Kill Harry, he's starting to come on. They got Elderman, but he's a slot wide receiver. Demir Bird, they got a couple of the pieces there. What do you think? Like before the trade deadline, what do you think the Patriots might be looking to add?
Well, I think the running back situation should come on. I was always a Sony guy coming out of Georgia. I'm glad he went off last week. Cam can run, so he's like a running back. It's terrible what happened to James White. Who knows when he comes back, but he's a great player.
He's back at practice. He's back at practice now.
Okay, so yeah, he's like clearly. So that group, their running group with Cam, him, Damian Harris is a solid player, and Sony Michel was a first-round pick for a reason. That's fine, right? I was a Nikhil guy, but Nikhil can't run, and Edelman's just a slot receiver. So they got nothing deep. Cam can throw it a mile. So if you could get just anything – ideally, if they could get like a Diggs-type player, it would be a game changer. But those guys don't really exist. Now, could they make some trade at the trade deadline? Like Falcons are selling. Would they give their first-round pick for like Calvin Ridley or something? Would the Falcons even do something like that? Just kind of start – I don't know. But I'd be – Belichick doesn't care. He traded a second for Sanu last year.
Yeah, I was thinking more of like, how about if the Detroit Lions season, if it doesn't go as they think it's going to go, what about calling Detroit for a Marvin Jones player?
You to me that like you go that route first, like cheaper. That's kind of what Belichick has done historically, right? Got a guy like that, Sanu, Marvin Jones. Golden Tate, like those type players usually get traded.
Yeah, because
I'd be shocked if Belichick doesn't sign. Trying to think like. The Giants have Golden Tate, but he makes a little money. But, like, what if the Jags are way out of it, buying one of their young wide receivers for a second-round pick, just them trying to accumulate picks to just kind of start over?
John, AJ Green.
What's up?
What about AJ Green? What if the Patriots inquire? I know he's a little bit older, but –
yeah, to me, the money, he's old. Like, I'm not – I think Patriots got burned last year with the Sanu, with older players, giving up a lot. Because his name, it's not like the Bengals are just giving him away. So I would say probably no there. Unless you get for like, would I take him for like a 6th-round pick? Like watching the Eagle game, Higgins was going off. Higgins had a couple touchdowns last week. Like Higgins just a better player now than AJ. And that's just, when you spend like 3 or 4 years just getting hurt every year, you don't get better, right? When you're 29, 30, 31. Thing with Julio, he gets banged up, but he doesn't miss that much time. He'll miss a game here, game there. AJ misses like 7 straight weeks, or goes on injured reserve. He just doesn't play. And I know he's been healthy this year, but I would say no on AJ.
Well, this week, let's talk Browns and Cowboys. Do you think this week is a good week for the Browns to make a statement? I know the Cowboys are 1-2. They can be 0-3, but some might say they can be 2-1. But if the Cleveland Browns, they've won 2 straight. I know it's been against the Redskins and the Bengals. But if they were to go to Dallas and put a statement out there and beat the Cowboys, do you think the NFL will start? Fans, everybody. You think we'll start looking at the Browns as they're serious, or is it more of the Cowboys just not good this year?
Yeah, I think we had to take the Browns seriously because the Cowboys are all it takes. You got to watch them. They've got some dudes, right? Their offense is unreal. Their D line. How about Alden Smith kicking everyone's ass? You know, he's got 4 sacks through 3 games. It's the one thing I think the Cowboys can kind of do is they can take away the run. Like you just saw it last week with Seattle. I don't think that Chubb and Kareem Hunt are just going to run for 200 yards. So can Baker Mayfield beat you? Now the wide receivers, Jarvis, Odell. I was called Odell Julio. Hooper, they should be able to get open against Dallas, but can Baker just go toe-to-toe with Dak? Because we know the Cowboys can score. I like the Cowboys in that game just because I have a hard time seeing the Browns get to 3-1. But they do like that. If they can run the ball on the Cowboys, they'll win. If the Cowboys can stop the run, I think the Cowboys win. It's really that. Like the Browns are going to win a lot of games this year when they can really run the ball. But look who they got. Like how are they going to beat the Steelers, the Ravens? Like you can't just run it down their throat. So that's where the problem is. You saw the Ravens killed them. Like they can kind of take away the run. Who the Browns play the last couple weeks? They played the Bengals. Who they just play? They were running it all over.
Redskins.
Yeah, it's like they're playing terrible teams. Like
yeah,
when they can run for like $150, they're going to be tough because those 2 running backs are sweet. Listen, Kareem Hunt kicked the girl on the ground. He might be a bad guy, but he was a legit starter on an all-time offense like that year with the Chiefs. Like he was their starting running back, and he was awesome. So now they got 2 guys. If Nick Chubb starter, like imagine if like the Niners had Kareem Hunt. You know, he'd be like their immediate starter, and they're a playoff team. So it's like he's sweet. You know, their running back situation is really good.
And lastly, this is a little off topic about football, but I'm a big Colin Cowherd fan. I really just got done watching him. Can you describe Colin like how's Colin Cowherd?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he is. You know, he's so famous, and the one thing that stood out to me being around him a couple times, like with his employees or the guys, you know, his producers and stuff, how just normal he is and how well he treats people. I mean, he's obviously got the most unique takes, and he thinks about sports in such a different way. Likes LeBron a little much for me right now, but I'm rooting for the Heat. But yeah, he is just he's a really down-to-earth, nice guy. I mean, I think that's the number one thing I always heard. I don't know that many famous people besides like people in the NFL or whatever, but like, you know, Hollywood types or, you know, people that are on TV. And he is just the opposite of what some of the stories you read about, you know, other people. He just how great of a guy he is. And then he's just, I don't think there's anyone in America who's got more unique sports takes. You know, good thing you got your hat on for us today.
Appreciate it, John.
Thanks, fellas.
Hey, John, real quick, thank you for joining the show. Also, where can our listeners and viewers follow you on social media?
Yeah, at John MIddlekauff is my Twitter and Instagram. Follow away.
All right, make sure you get subscribed also to John's podcast, 3 and Out on the Colin Cowherd Network, and then also my favorite podcast, the Haberman and MIddlekauff Ham Pod. Shout out Guy Haberman. John, appreciate the time.
See you, fellas.